I had a couple questions on. There was a property that I was evaluating to BRRRR, and I wound up letting it go just because I didn't feel that good about it, and just never really that confident to make up my mind one way or another.
Yeah.
But kind of the main question that came out of that was, um, is there ever a point where like you get that infinite cash on cash return, but your monthly cash flow is just so low that it's just kind of like not really worth your time and effort to go through 6 months of that, possibly 3 to 6 months to renovate it, refinance it, all of that. I mean, I don't know if you kind of have like a threshold, like I know you have numbers that you have to hit, but if you hit those numbers, is there like a threshold where it's just like, man, it's just so low that it's just kind of
Yeah.
not really
And
worth my time?
that's a great question, because essentially you're asking, what is more important, cash flow or money in my pocket? And that's not the exact question that you're asking, but that's the narrative that you're approaching. You're saying, what's more important? Is it more important for me to have cash flow, or is it more important for me to have money in my pocket? Like, at what point does it become just not worth it? Right? Because the previous deal that we just evaluated, right? You could make $100 a month after doing a bunch of work. You put in a lot of effort, and you walk away at refinance with $40,000. Or you could leave all that money in that $40,000 of equity, leave all that money in the property, and you're cash flowing $350 a month. Which would you pick? I think the important thing to realize here is both are fine answers. Either one of those are reasonable answers, because on one side, you've got money in your pocket that you can then put into another property, right? Let's say if you walk away, let's say you picked that option, you're making $100 a month. Let's say you're just breaking even, right? You're breaking even on this property. Let's say your mortgage is $400 a month and you're renting it at $900 a month, right? So you're about breaking even given the rest of the expenses, but you walk away with 40 grand, right? So first of all, somebody else is paying down your property. You've got a tax hedge, actually a pretty significant tax hedge, because you're not making as much. There's a lot of benefit there, and it's appreciating down the road. And you've got 40 grand in your hand right now that you can turn into 2 turnkey purchases, right? 20% down on a $100,000 property. You can get 2 of those at $300 a month. All right. So you're essentially saying, what's the best use of this money? In that situation, you're making, if it's $300 a month cash flow per property for turnkey, and you can get 2 more, then you're looking at $700 a month total with 3 doors. That's a pretty good situation. But if your main priority is I need cash flow, then leaving that equity in is okay. And that's totally fine. Both of those answers are like, if you were to pick either of them, it would be a reasonable choice. There's probably some hybrid in the middle that you say, you know what, I want to make $200 a month on this property, but I'm going to take 20 out so that I can put this into my next property. That's fine.
Gotcha.
If it were me and knowing the type of market that we're in right now, that one, rates are pretty good right now. The Fed has signaled that they're going to increase down the road. 2, property values or property prices haven't inflated yet as much, despite us 3 being in a market of the highest inflation we've seen in a half century, in about 40 years. And so what I would do is I would take that money out and I would go buy 2 more properties, because 2 more properties at $100,000 each. And let's say this other property appraised at $100,000. If they appreciate, like Goldman Sachs says they're going to appreciate, 16.4%. Now that's across the board. That's not every market, right? So use that within reason, but 16.4%, that's $16,400 on each property, right? So what is that? That's $45,000, $48,000, right, over the next year of equity that you created just by doing nothing. Right? That's a good situation. So that's that when we talk about evaluating and understanding the market dynamics in order to form your future decisions, that's really what we're talking about. All right. So that's what I would do is I would put money into a property and then I would watch it go to the moon over the next 4 or 5 years. You know, the property we just looked at with Ricky, they bought it for 55. They're selling it wholesale basically at 75, and they bought it 4 years ago. You know, they're making a killing on it, right? And it's wholesale. It's not even in great shape, right? So I think it's very reasonable that we could see in the next 5 years, property values increase by over 5 years, increased 50%, maybe even double in like the 5 to 8 year period, market dependent, right? So all that to say, both of those answers would be realistic. They would be fine. They'd be reasonable. I would probably pull the equity out and put it into something else.
Okay.